Welcome, guys, to our third webinar with the IDA partnership. It's been a blast to do these three webinars. I believe so much so that we are probably going to continue doing these, but let's go ahead and take a look at what we have for you today. And with me, I have a few other presenters, other youth presenters. We have Christopher Nace and Clem and Chris Colston. Christopher Nace is from Virginia. Clem and Chris Colston are from Delaware. We have Matt Shapiro from, I hope I got that right, Matt, from Virginia. And we're just here to share youth perspective. So let's look at what the objectives are for today's session. And if you've been to the other two webinars, you know that the way we kind of do things here on these webinars is we use personal stories and insights from youth and young adults from all across the country, primarily Pennsylvania, Delaware, New Hampshire, Michigan, Arizona, and California, and Virginia, to learn about stuff that young people care about. So what's the youth role in transition? What is the power of effective youth engagement and self-determination practices, and also ideas on how to best support youth in the transition process. But I guess in a certain way, this third webinar is unique in the sense that we collaborated with adult allies for this portion, for the third webinar, because the third webinar is focused on adult ally participation with youth within the transition process. So, awesome. So with that said, I'm going to turn this over to Clem from Delaware to talk about ways that you can really engage effectively in this webinar today. So go ahead, Clem.
Thank you, Everett. Hi, everyone. My name is Clement Colson, as Everett shared. And during this webinar, we're really going to be focusing on adult allies, but ensuring that we are engaging all who are involved and participating with us today. So a lot of content is going to be posted throughout this webinar. So we really would encourage you to reflect on, what are we saying in regards to, what do you like, and what may be challenging for you, and how can you apply that in your everyday leadership initiative. The second part is kind of connecting, where today we're going to be sharing a lot of best practices through experiences of both young people as well as adult allies. So seeing what you can do to enhance your current work and your current leadership initiatives so that you can enhance them as well. And the last one is also sharing. As you can tell, there has been some activities going on in the participant chat box. And the next thing I'm going to be going to is Twitter. We are live tweeting this event. So if you're not already on Twitter, you can follow us at the _partnership. You can tweet your reflections, questions, and insights using the Youth for Engagement hashtag. And then also, we say if you are new to Twitter and haven't been able to use that venue before, if you go to the bit.ly Twitter eHow at the bottom of the screen, that is an eHow to help initiate and or enhance your knowledge in using Twitter. So we are going to be also creating a storify afterwards that will be included in the follow-up email. But just really, throughout the time, share your questions, your reflections with us through different means that best supports your learning venue. And with that said, I am going to pass it off to Everett.
I was going to say, I think it's me. And every time we do these, webinars. I love this picture because the picture that you see in the bottom right, and I believe it's on the partnership website still. It was probably the first time that youth from other states really came together to do some sharing, and it was at the Pennsylvania State Transition Conference last summer in July. And Chris Colson, who's on this webinar, and Christopher Nace, who's also here, we all worked together to be able to share our thoughts on transition and youth leadership and youth development, and it was really, really wonderful to be a part of the process because we started to meet together on a regular basis, like through emails and conference calls and everything else. And as we sat at the conference together, it was like, you know, you guys are doing great stuff with your programs in Virginia. Delaware, what are you guys doing? How can we connect in Pennsylvania with what you guys are doing? We should probably do this together on a regular basis. So that's how these webinars were born, and we've really been able to create something really, really cool and learn from each other, but also give you, the professional, great information about what the youth are really thinking across the country. So that being said, Clem, do you want to set up the foundation of the last 4 webinars?
Yeah, definitely. So during the first 2 webinars that we had, we focused on 4 main pillars. We focused on what is transition. We also talked about, you know, what is authentic youth engagement? What does it feel like? How does it look like? And then we also talked about, you know, a support team and how vital that is for the young person as they transition forth. And then also knowing yourself and how that has been really helpful. We really were able to, again, we posed prompts for the participants to, throughout the United States, to share with us their thoughts and feedback on certain prompts that were posed for each of these 4 pillars. And during the first 2 webinars, we synthesized them and organized them, and we're able to share some videos and some audio clips, but then also be able to further elaborate and talk about them today. And just to go to our first webinar, the quick review, our first webinar was about getting into the picture. So as you can see on the top 2 slides, we focused on, you know, what is the transition process, and, you know, who is involved and why is it important. We talked about the value of reflection, and we also talked about when you are feeling engaged. And at the bottom, we used a little Wordle to be able to talk and organize what our thoughts are in regards to transition. So in a couple of slides, we're going to share with you the links that you can access these PowerPoints and webinars, but just to kind of give you a little background of the foundation that we were bringing. And with that, I'm going to send it over to Everett.
Sure. And webinar 2 was all about a support team, and how can a support team, so when we're talking about a support team, you know, parents, professionals, VR professionals possibly, how can they support young people in the transition process? And if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see an example of a one-pager that was developed by Virginia in their On Determined project, but it is actually Chris Colston's one-pager. So Chris, do you want to explain how you utilize this one-pager within your transition?
Yes. This one-pager is the basis of my IEP meeting. I participate in my IEP meeting by telling the team my strengths, my needs, my interests, and my goals. I use this one-pager to prepare a PowerPoint for my whole IEP team to see. Kathy Harrell taught me, this is about you, and you need to be there and give the answers. Because we're meeting because of me. Thank you, Everett.
Yeah, and I think, Chris, you're in high school, right, still? You're still in high school in Delaware, right? So you're using this stuff all the time with your teachers. And some of the stuff that he said there that I think is really powerful is that it shows a way for young people to be engaged in the process and making sure that the professionals in the room are listening and supporting the young person, the youth, within their transition process. Because sometimes the natural reaction is to not always listen and hear what the young person's saying, but I think that's one of the biggest things the support team needs to do is listen and get young people engaged and kind of hear what we're saying. So it's really, really great if you're a professional on this webinar to hear the perspective of young people across the country as we approach all these topics. So in regards to where you can find this stuff, Clem, do you want to explain this lovely screenshot?
Yes. So in the, where can I get all these resources that we're talking about? So in the middle of this page, you will see a blue box with a bit.ly. That is another URL to be able to access all the PowerPoint webinar presentations, all shared through our sharedwork.org website. And it's really, it's been a big hub in regards to gathering all the different resources that have been shared on previous webinars, as well as post-webinars that may be happening as well. So definitely encourage you to save and bookmark that link, visit it frequently, and as soon as this webinar is finished within the next couple of days, it will also be uploaded to the website. And with that, I'm going to be next handing it off to Nat.
Thanks, Clem. So I'm going to kind of touch a little bit on, again, we touched a little bit on the 4 pillars already of leadership and the pillars of these webinars so far, but I'm also going to touch on what is an adult ally. And in our minds, an adult ally is someone that can support us in the ventures that we're doing as youth and the projects that we're working on to try and make transition for youth ideal. Like Everett was saying, they're there to support us and let us kind of steer the ship, for lack of a better phrase. And so when we were trying to put these webinars together, we prompted the youth and the adult allies with the questions you see there on your slide to really get some good feedback from youth and adult allies from all over the country about how they work together and how an adult ally can support a youth with disabilities. And you'll be hearing some of those responses here shortly throughout the webinar. Another piece that we're looking at is kind of this change in mindsets that adult allies are kind of adult allies and youth are kind of going through. The left side is kind of what it has been in the past. So in the past, adult allies were drivers. Well, now they're more being utilized as support for youth with disabilities and resources to help us achieve the things that we're trying to do as youth with disabilities. In the past, they used I teach you was the idea, but now it's more of a team effort type thing, and we learn together, and we learn from each other and the values and ideas that we all bring to the table at once. And then the last one there is I will just do it, whereas now it is you can do it and I'm there to help you. So again, that really comes back to the support level and really working as a unit, and we really encourage you to do that with your young people in your area because it can become an empowering situation for the young person. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Clem.
Thank you, Matt. And when we first shared the one-pager that Matt talked about before that had all the prompts for adult allies as well as prompts for the youth leaders, one of the intriguing aspects that we found when we were given the contributions is how much the adult allies expressed not just their enjoyment in working with young people, but how much they themselves have learned from young people. I think sometimes as young people, we too can get in the mindset that, oh, well, adults, they've been on this earth for so many years, and they have lots of experiences and insights, and while that is true, that doesn't define their value. And as young people, we do have contributions to share. We do have innovative and really unique ideas, but we have to be empowered so that we can feel comfortable and valued to share that with other people, which is kind of really interested to kind of hear that. The other thing, too, is the adult allies shared how the young people have kept them honest, because a lot of times young people are going to ask the why question, and we can really sense when we are valued authentically or when we're kind of valued as a token item, or sometimes even worse is when we feel like we're puppets, that we're kind of operated by the top and we just kind of follow through, read off of stuff, or do as we are told. And for young people who are self-advocates, they've been able to help adult allies realize that we need to be authentic in all of our engagements. The next thing is I have learned from young people. That's another phrase that was shared so often, and it was just, sometimes we think of the whole, when you're in school you learn, but then when you're out of school you're done learning. And in actuality, we're learning every day, but we have to ensure that we are open to that learning. Sometimes we can close it off or feel that we are an expert in our field and we can no longer learn from others and we can only inspire. And that's very sad when that happens, because I believe we should all commit to being lifelong learners and sharers. Now, Christopher, can you share a little bit about, how sharing new perspectives and kind of some of your thoughts on adult allies?
We all have unique talents and strengths. This means that we are all different, but we all have different gifts to contribute. When doing Kids Inspiring Kids, I never really thought about strengths before. The focus was more on what was hard for me. Focusing on my strengths gives me more energy.
And with that, Christopher really talked about how it has helped him, but then also how the adult allies in the process have learned as well. And going on to the next slide, I think we're going to read a quote from, I think, one of Christopher's adult allies. So, Chris, can you read the quote for us?
Yes. Youth leaders are more open to learning and engaging in new activities. In my experience, youth leaders more readily take their missteps in stride and also celebrate their success more often. I am reminded how important it is to be flexible, keep a sense of humor, and celebrate more often.
And with that, Christopher really, this was written by an adult ally who I believe is on this webinar, Kathy Harrell. And it's one of the things that I think really kind of stands out to this is recently a lot of talk has been focused on reflection. And sometimes we think it's just an adult practice or something that adults do. But through this statement, it shares how many young people are engaging in reflection. They may not coin it as that term, but they're really, they're celebrating, what went well, what were our successes, and identifying areas of, these are some of our challenges that we have encountered, and how can we fix them, that we're not being stuck or being frozen, and we're really looking to, how can we make that change. So I think really kind of focusing on how, this partnership with adult allies and young people is really collaborative, and it's learning and sharing with one another. And with that, we're going to go into some of the beliefs that adult allies have. And one of the things that I also kind of want to do is I see so much awesomeness in the chat box, and I want people who are joining us today to talk about what do they think some of the beliefs that adult allies have. The first one that we identified was having confidence in youth. And that was something that was really prevalent through all the responses that were given to us, is that we really need to see and authentically believe that young people are the leaders of today and that they are self-advocates and that we can help support their growth through providing those real-life experiences. Too oftentimes we think of creating environments that will, quote-unquote, prepare them for the future or prepare them for the world. Why don't we just engage them authentically in the world today, provide that support, but then be able to step back and then provide the support and talk with them and see how you can be best helpful and engaging in those types of conversations. Later on this PowerPoint, we're going to be talking about the aspect of time and how to kind of juggle that stuff and some of the challenges we have had. And Christopher also talked about how, we all have unique talents and strengths. And, And I think one of the things is that, Christopher, what is something that we've been able to do in regards to, having goals and such?
But what I learned, it's about each other and helping each other to reach our goals.
Exactly. And that's how, the adult allies and young people work with one another, celebrating their unique talents and strengths so that we can reach those goals together. And, and that's so important because you are so helpful in helping other people, but they're also helpful for you and your challenges and your experiences and other stuff such as that. The next thing is kind of sharing the power with young people. I think that oftentimes we sometimes have challenges in being able to effectively do so, or sometimes we feel that we're not even empowered so that we can share that with other people. And really it's identifying, how can we get together at the table and work and learn and share with one another so that we feel supported, respected, and empowered. And we really need to get rid of the hierarchical structure that can often impose that authentic collaboration and that teamwork, and really, be lifelong learners and sharers together, that we're not learning for you, we're learning together and learning with one another. We talk with one another. I don't talk to you, I talk with you because I want you to share with me what you're thinking as well. And that goes to my last point, that every opinion counts. It does not mean you necessarily have to agree and believe in regards to what that person is saying, but you have to value what they shared with you. That is so, so important, because as soon as a young person or even an adult ally feels that they are not valued, their opinion is they're not going to share their opinion, and that creativity and innovation, it's not going to be as strong as it could have been if we really created that climate where everyone's opinion counts and that we really create that environment. And Christopher, could you share a little bit about kind of this whole sharing the power aspect and about this?
As young person should see an adult ally as a person who always has their back, but also knows when to back off, so that young person believes they can do anything. This picture of me and my adult ally, Kathy Harrell, this is an exercise in Kids Inspiring Kids on goal setting. We learn we all have goals, and we each have different steps in reaching those goals. Each of my classmates have different steps from me. Even though this program was on Saturday morning, I loved it more than going to school. This was about planning for my future.
And I absolutely love this picture because here you see Christopher with his peers, Josh, and you see Christopher's adult ally right next to him. And this is really where, as a team, they were able to say, Christopher, we see this is what your goal, and let's co-create and co-identify the steps that you need to take to get there, and let's see how we can help support you. And as you will see, Christopher is going to be the one taking those steps. The adult ally in this picture, she's going to be help supporting other young people, but she's not the one who's going to be taking the steps because that's not her journey. She can help support other people, other journeys, and support fellow self-advocates, but if she does the journey, then where's the whole self-advocacy part, and how is that young person going to be able to learn and grow and be in these experiences so that they themselves can help inspire other young people to take on these journeys. So it's really that partnership aspect and sharing the power. And with that said, I am going to hand it back off to Everett.
Awesome job, guys. And I get to do the slide on adult ally characteristics. And to be honest, I requested to do this slide because my adult ally, I believe, is Joan Kessler, who is the one. I guess I should say the one who's actually on this webinar. And after going through this PowerPoint and thinking about this, all of these all these values you see here about characters of an adult ally, that is Joan, and I can honestly say that there were times that I guess I'm becoming a young professional, and I owe a lot of my growth in my professional life to Joan. But she definitely shares a genuine interest and value in young people, and asks a lot of probing questions to get me to think about life and what I want to do and where I'm going and all those different things, but then open opportunities for youth to fully express themselves. And sometimes, like I said, I can remember going to my first community of practice meeting as a young person years ago, and Joan would just run me up to somebody and say, introduce yourself and tell them about you and what we're doing in Pennsylvania. And I'd be like, oh, Joan, I can't believe you made me do this again. But I learned so much from that support, from those opportunities, and having allies in my life that have been there to ask those questions, but also were really, really interested in what I had to say. So that being said, we have our first question that we posed to young people about adult allies. Now, before I ask Mariola to play the audio, I want to remind everybody that's on this webinar to make sure you turn on your computer speakers and so that you can hear everything just fine. But the first question that we asked young people were, how have adult allies helped you within the transition process? So go ahead, Mariola.
My adult allies are my parents, friends, and coworkers who I work with now at Dear Success. When I need help, I can go to my adult allies. They help me with problems. They also believe in me.
They help to establish an adult ally circle. And what I mean by that is when a youth gets a help from an adult ally, the youth should then become adult allies themselves by the lessons taken from all of the experiences with the adult ally. So it's sort of like a mentor circle. You depend on the mentor, and then you become independent, and then you become a mentor yourself.
Adult allies who have helped me in the transition process are adults who are willing to teach me and willing to share the power with me. Kathy Harrell helped me by teaching me self-advocacy and self-determination. She took the time to teach me about this, and she talks to me and listens to my questions. Kathy empowers me to lead my IEP meetings and work on transition every day. Dale Masidovich is a great adult ally because he brings other self-advocates to our state so we can learn from them. Mr. Vitch gives me opportunities to use my new skills. He supports me when I talk about transition and self-determination, and he shares the power with me.
And I really love hearing Chris say about sharing power, and you heard Reese say that this is youth that have been impacted by adult allies should then turn around and try to become adult allies themselves. And I can honestly say, now being a young professional, that is what I try and do as I age out of, I guess I'm getting old, I guess. But there are, but there's kind of this whole cycle to the whole process of, you get an opportunity to meet people and then you just keep going, and then you become an adult ally, or no, you're a youth like we all are, and then you become an adult ally, then give that back. So that's a really powerful thing. And then the next thing is all about sharing the power, and it could either be that other people have decided what's best for you, but then it's also let's co-create the options together. So it's really about having young people co-creating their options within transition with adult ally support. But the adult allies need to make sure that they understand that young people are in that driver's seat. So make sure we're sharing the power, which is exactly what Chris Colston said. And then questions young people may ask themselves a lot. They tell me I need to be a self-advocate, but how can I be one when I'm given no power? A lot of times, I mean, this kind of takes me around like buzzwords. You know, we say we need to teach self-advocacy skills. We need to do all these things to have young people be a part of the process. But if we don't give them any power and no ability to say anything, then how can they practice those things or communicate their needs? And that kind of leads into the next one. Are my ideas really considered? Are young people really being valued in the process? Is what they are saying being heard? Or are they just being, what the last bubble says, are they just being yesed at? Are they just being told that what they're saying is great so that somebody can just check off a box and say that the youth voice or that the youth perspective was garnered within the IEP process? So, and it needs to go beyond that and getting young people engaged and feeling like the adult allies care and want to hear what they have to say. But these are all things that I have asked myself, and I've actually almost yelled it at times during meetings, saying, are you actually hearing me, or are you just kind of pretending because you feel like you have to? And now I'm going to turn it over to Clem to focus on the blue section of the questions for the webinar now.
Thank you, Everett. And I also just posted the links for the one-pager where these prompts were listed so that you'll be able to refer to them throughout this presentation. So the next question is, what has been most challenging in working with adults? And you'll be able to hear from a couple of youth leaders, and then we're also going to have a little discussion afterwards. So with that said, let's hear what people had to share in regards to this prompt.
The biggest challenge in working with adults is that some people can't understand what I'm saying.
Adults are not always guaranteed to be completely receptive to the youth's needs or voice in the process of transition. I had indeed suffered this throughout grade school myself. And the result is the adults doing their own thing, and there's not really any goals that are set, no purpose associated with those goals. Nothing, everything's just loose, nothing's tied together and certain. Like there's not really a definite measure of success there. Sometimes the adult allies feel compelled to pacify or run everything, but this is not beneficial in the sense that youth should participate in discussions just as much as the adult allies are involved in that same discussion.
The biggest challenge with working with adults is that most do not understand transition, and they don't want to understand their role as an adult ally. I think they think it's someone else's job. Adults need to work with self-advocates and not overshadow them.
Awesome. So one of the key things that Christopher, Reese, and Alyssa were able to share is sometimes they feel that the adults are on the left, are kind of in the left-hand side of the screen, as you can tell. So they're in the meeting, and even when Everett posed that question in regards to, does the young person feel like that they're at the meeting, but then they're really not engaged, but then maybe we'll ask the young person a question, or maybe they'll say something, and the whole meeting just stops. We say yes, yes, okay, that's great, and then the meeting continues forth. When that happens, that's something that young people, they're like, you know, why even contribute? Because I'm not authentically engaged, I'm not even valued. That the meeting stops, so I'll look at me, but then they continue forth. And that is really not that authentic engagement, and we really want that. And I think this picture is a great illustration of that, that as young people, sometimes we feel like there's a brick wall in front of us that prevents us from even getting into the group. Earlier on the past webinar, I talked about how I know that within the law, we talk about the whole process of we have to invite the self-advocate to their IEP meeting. And I personally have some challenges in regards to that wording, in regards to invite, because we're at the IEP meeting because of the self-advocate. And I know personally, I never had to be invited to my own birthday party. And that's just something that we really need to ensure that that brick wall is not there. And that young person is not outside of that group, but they are with the group, and that they're valued, heard, and able to contribute, because it is about them. That is why we are here. And I truly believe that adults want to support young people as best as they can, but sometimes they don't know best how to, and that the way that their actions can lead young people to feel excluded and feel not valued. And it's really kind of that shared vision and ensuring that we're all on the same page aspect, that people are not doing this to be malicious or to be mean, but it's really that whole awareness aspect and ensuring that everyone feels engaged. The second part to this that I thought was really interesting was what Reese was talking about. And one of the things that I constantly hear with in regards to communication is that, oh my gosh, I send out all these emails, I send out these blasts, I post here, I do this, I'm communicating. And what I call that is I just call that sharing out. But what sharing, the component that sometimes we miss is, okay, so I'm sharing out, what is being received? What are people getting from what I'm sharing with them? Too oftentimes, we just kind of get in the mindset of I press send and that equals communication. And communication is all about sharing, but then how the person on the receiving end understands it, synthesizes it, and then is able to create a response so that you can continue forth the communication and the collaboration. So it's really important that we identify, rather than pointing the finger in regards to, well, I'm quote-unquote communicating and nothing's happening. So we really need to see the why, or what is working well and what may not be getting transferred in regards to sharing and learning with one another. So when this happens, I really encourage us to create communication norms. And our guiding question that I would really like us to consider is, how do we best learn and share with one another? And I think once we identify this question and everyone at the table and at the room sees the value in this, so much can happen that's going to be positive, that's going to be supportive, and it's going to support the growth within all, not just the self-advocate, but also the adult allies in the room. So when we really think of communication norms, we look at pretty much two different components. We look at the nonverbal components and we look at the verbal components. Nonverbal components I often see as the whole body listening. I know I've been in a couple IEP meetings, and what has been most challenging for me is when the adult allies in the room will solely just look at the parent of the child, and that they won't even look at the child because they only perceive that the parent is the one who has the quote-unquote power, or the one who knows how to communicate or knows what we're talking about. And as a young person, as you sit there, you're just like, wow, like they're not even engaging me. And I hope that you understand what I just said in regards to, I'm just sitting there. If the young person at the table feels that and it's going through their head, that is really, that's an opportunity for us to get in the picture and see how we can change that, because young people can be engaged if we open up our eyes to their abilities and talents and strengths. The second part is looking at the verbal part. And then my first one that I kind of want to go to is word choice. One of the things that I have often come across is that adult allies say that, oh, well, you know, the kids, and that's another thing that I kind of had a challenge with when I believe that young people don't want to be there. And one of the things that I'm like, that I asked them. It's like, well, have you ever asked them after their IT meeting, what was something that you learned and what was something that was challenging? I know I asked that to a couple of fellow young people, and one of the things that they shared with me is that I have absolutely no idea what they're saying. Absolutely no idea. And I'm like, well, why would you say that? And this one young person said, they're using these words and they're using all these acronyms that I have no idea what they mean. They show me these papers and it just does not make sense for me. And at that moment, that's when I say, okay, we need to really look at the preparation aspect. And as you will hear throughout this webinar, transition is a process. It is not a one-time event. So if a young person is just prepared, quote unquote, 2 days before the meeting and then expected to fully engage, that's not going to happen to the fullest opportunity or potential. So we really need to ensure that the young person, before going to that meeting and throughout the school year, are engaged in these conversations, are know what these big terms mean. And there's different ways in regards to showing it visually, showing it through picture forms, technology. There's so many different ways. We really need to go beyond the whole reading from a book or textbook to be able to understand and grasp this information. And then the second part is really the tone. One of the things that I've really noticed is that when young people are asked, when young people are expected and asked to contribute, one of the ways that some adult allies can phrase the questions, or when they want to have them, is any questions? And when a young person hears that, just the way that I said it, any questions, that tone is in a way that, A, you should not have any questions because I properly explained this. And when we have that mindset in regards to if you don't understand, then that's not my problem, it's your problem, that's such a gap in regards to that team. And we really need to close that and ensure that we're a cohesive team and that we're able to understand and learn with one another. So not just as much, we have to focus on how we phrase things as well as the tone, using our word choices, but then kind of having the holistic picture in regards to how is our nonverbal. One of the biggest things that I also talk about is young people often feel very intimidated going to a teacher's desk. And the teachers will sit at their desk, they'll have all their items, and it can be that whole equity aspect can be really different, and the young person may not feel comfortable. So just going to, having a circle table and just sitting there together, that makes that young person feel, okay, we're on the same team. It's not you versus I. And I think that's such a big mindset change that we need to make sure that we're constantly reflecting about and how we can move forth. And with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Matt.
So now I get to talk about the next question. In which ways can adult allies best support you so you feel comfortable enough to engaging with them? So again, we're going to hear from a few more youth around this idea. So go ahead, Mayol.
When adults are friendly to me, they make me feel comfortable to ask questions.
The adults have to start by making a positive commitment to help youth with the process, however long it takes, and with whatever goals that the youth has. And it's the responsibility of the adults to provide the youth with all of the resources, academic or job-related or any other big things that would likely have an impact on their future. So there's that promise that should be kept.
Adult allies can best support me when they listen to what I need or want for my future. For example, when I go up to my teachers in the beginning of the school year and explain how I can be successful in their classroom, I really need for them to listen to me and believe in me. Some teachers do not know what I'm doing when I advocate for myself this way. They don't understand that they have a role in my transition beyond what is going to be on their test. I wish all teachers knew about transition, self-advocacy, and the role of adult ally.
So that was, that's a really important piece that all three of those youth really said. We really need it to be, again, going back to this whole idea of a team effort and really
Adult allies can
adult allies really support the young person. So it kind of goes to this question also on the screen. Do we co-invest in time we have now, or do we push through, then wonder where time is gone? So do we really invest in the young person and really sit down with them and hear what their thoughts are and what they want to have done in terms of their transition piece? Or are we in situations where we're just trying to get through to the next thing? And as you've kind of heard throughout this whole webinar, is that it's really important to really, really take the young person's thoughts and feelings and desires into account when we're working on transition issues. So for the adult allies on the call, please consider that when you're working with your young people, and take the time to hear what they have to say, and don't just worry about getting the paperwork filled out, because as we have learned, it's a very important thing to really hear from the young person. Going on to the next slide, and this is a great photo illustration of how we've sort of done things in the past and how we really need to do things in the future. So in the past, the top part of the slide there, when we're looking at transition, we're really only looking at it through binoculars in one aspect of transition. We're only focused on employment or education or whatever. Whereas what we really need to do is look at the idea of transition as a big picture, and how all of those aspects of employment and education can all work together, and we as a group and a unit can all work together. So we really need to, again, try and change the mindset when we're working with young people, because life is a big picture situation, and we need to work through those things in that way instead of just focusing on one aspect of life. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris Mace.
Okay, so as we've gone through this presentation, we're kind of leading up to this big question as how can the adult allies really empower students to really take charge of their lives? So we've posed this prompting question to many self-advocates, and here's what they had to say about how they feel adult allies can empower them to really take charge.
adult allies can empower me by helping me.
Adult allies can empower me by supporting me and not dominating the process. Adult allies should recognize the process is supporting youth leadership. I am the one walking through the door of opportunity. I need your help by holding the door open for me.
What a very powerful statement. I am the one walking through the door of opportunity. That's phenomenal. So as we think about how we as adult allies, so I'm kind of straddling the line here. I'm both a youth and I work for the District of Columbia Public Schools as an adult ally for students. And so when I think of this concept of power, I think of it in two ways. How would I, as a youth, when I went through my education and really thought about that concept, how would I have liked to have seen my adult allies empower me and allow me to have power over myself, really, and talking about myself and being able to articulate what I need to be successful in my education. And now I'm also thinking about, okay, how do I frame power dynamics for students in the district so that they feel empowered. Again, it's this concept of power with instead of power over. A lot, when we think of terms of power, we think of someone having power over someone else. We should begin to frame adult allies with youth, self-advocates, as power with one another to reach an outcome. Again, Chris so aptly put it, the door of opportunity. Adult allies are crucial to helping students walk through that door of opportunity. Without the adult ally, students will not be able to conceptualize what they need for the future because we all, and I speak from personal experience, we all need support to really get through that door. But once we're through that door, we expect you to continue to support us and kind of be our person to lean back on and say, hey, did you go through this? How was this? Being more or less being support to us throughout in our entire lives. And that's really the point of adult allies, is someone to stand behind the student and really say, I'm here for you. I'm here to answer questions, and I'm here to guide you through that door of opportunity. Okay.
So I guess as we transition to almost the end of this, this is just giving you an idea, and that's a lovely picture of me. Don't worry, ladies, I'm getting married next year. But that's a that's a lovely picture. But this is all the people. There's Chris Mace from DC Public Schools. He's probably loving that picture too.
I was gonna say it's a pretty good picture. Yeah.
It is actually, yeah. And there's Clem. I mean, just to give you an idea of all the places that we come from as youth and young adults, young professionals, doing the things that we do. Special Olympics Project Unify and Student Voice. And there's his Twitter handle, as he's always plugging that too. Gotta love it. And then Chris Colston doing his thing, and there is his Twitter handle too. Chris, I know this is on the spot, but where was this picture taken, bud?
It was taken last year at the transition conference when I presented in my state.
Awesome. Awesome, in Delaware. That's awesome. And there's Matt, who actually, he didn't really say this, but this was the first webinar that he stepped into to do this, so that was a great job, Matt. I don't know if you want to explain who you are, too,
Sure.
Matt.
I'm very much involved in work here in Virginia and love working on transition and youth issues and really look forward to helping move this work that we're doing forward, and really appreciate the adult allies being on the call today, and I'm ready to get back to work.
Yeah, there's always work to be done, and other places that you can go. Here's a plug for Clem. I don't know if you want to talk about Project Unify at all and socialinclusion.org or not.
Yeah, just went through it quickly through. If you go to socialinclusion.org, there are some resources, inclusive youth leadership guidelines in particular, that talks about the role of adult allies in supporting young people and becoming inclusive youth leaders. So it talks about some of the values and the strengths and how the actions that they can take to support young people. It's a fantastic resource and a fantastic organization I encourage you to check out. And the second one is the National Youth Leadership Network. They also have fantastic resources on adult allies. There is a link as well on the bottom of your screen to access that, to access their resources as well. But again, this will be available after the presentation to ensure that you'll be able to access these. And with that said, I think we're going to have some participants talk with us in regards to their experiences. So I think we have to do a couple of muting and unmuting situations, so just bear with us. But if you can maybe share your reflections in the chat box in regards to one thing that most surprised you, as well as one thing that most challenged you. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, and the neat thing about the students that we are unmuting, they are from Kuwait. So they are, the way I understand it is that this kind of transition does not really exist where they are from. So they're kind of being exposed to this stuff for one of the first times. So if they're ready to share their reflections about this webinar as young people from Kuwait, that would be wonderful. And I believe they should be unmuted now if they're ready. What? Anyone who wants to go first, just go ahead and go ahead. I hope we're not having audio trouble. Okay, go ahead. I see Abdullah, I think, shared in the chat box that he wants to go first. Mariola, I see that they're unmuted, but I can't hear them if I'm supposed to be able to, or everyone's supposed to be able to.
This is Mariola. I think we have some difficulties with students' voice from
Hi,
Kuwait.
my name's Abdullah.
Oh,
great.
there he is.
Excellent. Go ahead.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi, Abdullah. Go ahead and share away.
First of all, my name's Abdullah Al-Hindi, and my disability, I'm 27 years old, and my disability is I'm an autistic, and I'm a student from the Australian College of Kuwait, inside Kuwait, and thank you for giving me guys the chance to share you guys about my experience through my education in the United States. I mean in Kuwait. Sorry. Well, first of all, to begin with, the most challenging thing that I had in through my education is after I moved back to Kuwait, I faced some problems through my education because Kuwait in here they don't I didn't have any room to continue my education here in Kuwait, and so I entered to the special needs school called the Desmar Mall School. I spent 2 years there studying there, and I learned nothing there. And after I graduated from this place, my mom she ran my paperwork through the government so she can send me abroad to the United States, to send me to a normal school, but through the government called the Public Authority for the People with Disability. And first of all, they asked me to take an evaluation so they can see my intelligence. And after my mom, she received my intelligence, my mom, she sent it to the government, and she sent it to the government, and the government said, no, this guy, he's not intelligent enough. His intelligence is 50%. And my mom, she went to several doctors, and they evaluated the results, and they said that there's nothing wrong with me. My intelligence is completely perfect. And after that, my mom, she sent my mom, she yeah.
Can you? Oh, sorry, Abdullah. We appreciate you sharing your stories and your experience into getting the post-secondary education. But how you can, what kind of support that you got from the system and for your leadership and deciding to pursue your education in college? How this different? How the stories that was shared in the webinar was similar to your experience? Are they similar to your experience? Because you know that most of the youth we're talking, they are from U.S. and they are having like a different system. But I can see that the youth needs are the same.
Okay. Well, the supports I had were from first of all from my family, and then to my friends, and even my friends which are from the voluntary center called Abierto, and from the Training Gate International, and even my friends back in high school, which from the boarding school in Iowa, I received their support from them.
That's great. So they will believe in your ability that you can do and pursue your education. Thank you. Thank you, Abdullah. This is a great insight. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I don't know if you can, Abdulaziz can maybe join and share his reflection about what he was exposed to this webinar, how it's similar, the insights of the youth are similar to yours. Aziz, you can unmute by pressing #6.
You're talking to me? Hello?
We can hear you. Is this Abdulaziz?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here, yeah.
Yeah, Abdulaziz. Is that Abdulaziz? We actually received some recordings from students from Kuwait, so we'll include them we'll post them on Shared Work website. So if you are interested to hear more from their experience, you will be able to review this after the webinar. But I think that today we're 5 minutes over our time, and I will ask Clem to wrap it up.
Yeah, I just want to take a little bit of time to thank everyone who made this webinar possible, and really the other component that really made it successful is that we just didn't collaborate as a team and share what we thought adult allies and how they support young people are, but we really were able to connect and hear the thoughts and responses from people throughout the world and how adult allies have supported them, as well as how young people have supported adult allies. So really, I really appreciate your time and your energy and your passion in sharing with us. And I look forward to continuing the conversation. Our contact information is also listed on that wiki page that will also be provided during the follow-up email. And just continue the conversation. As we know, transition is a journey. It's not a one-time event. Even though the webinar is ending, it doesn't mean that transition is not ending. It will continue. And with that said, I would like to thank everyone for their participation and engagement, and we will talk with you soon. Have a great day, everyone.